Coming to you straight from Fremont, California, this is the Fremont Podcast, dedicated to telling the stories of the past and present of the people and places of the city of Fremont, one conversation at a time. Now, here's your host, Ricky B.
Hello, Fremont. You're listening to episode number 37 of the Fremont Podcast. It is a pleasure to have you join me each week to listen to these conversations. And I love it when you respond in sending me a message either on Instagram or Facebook and share your thoughts on what's going on around the city of Fremont. Speaking of what's going on around the city of Fremont, we have a number of events that are coming up the next couple weeks that I want to tell you about. And I think these are events that you'll want to know about and that you won't want to miss. But before we do that, here's a word from our sponsor.
Gary Williams here. Some friends of mine are making a difference in the community, and one of the ways they're doing that is helping to sponsor this podcast. Petroselli Homes Realty Group is a boutique brokerage service located in downtown Niles. John and Jennifer Petroselli have had the honor of helping countless buyers and sellers make effective real estate decisions to plant their roots, raise their families, expand their wealth, or simply relax and retire. So if what I've described is what you might be looking for in a realtor, I suggest getting in touch with Petroselli Homes on Niles Boulevard in downtown Niles.
If you are looking to buy or sell a home, I would totally recommend Petroselli Homes. They will help you with every part of the process, and their office is located downtown Niles on Niles Boulevard. Speaking of Niles, on August 28th is the annual Antique Festival. It is a huge event, and all of Niles joins in, and people come from all over the place to come and take part in that festival. It's something that you would probably want to put on your calendar and take advantage of as well. It's mostly an all-day event. Again, it's on August 28th. Upcoming this weekend, just a day or two after this podcast goes live, August 20th and 21st are the India Day celebrations and the festivities that happen around the city of Fremont. They will have a fair for the Saturday and Sunday, and then on Sunday from 11 to 2 or 11 to 1, I believe, actually, is the India Day Parade, and that is something that you could take advantage of as well. It would be a great way to get to know part of the culture of many of the people that live here in Fremont. If you want more information about that, you can go to the website FOGSV, as in Silicon Valley.com. So that's F as in Fremont, OG, SV as in Silicon Valley.com. Also, another big event that is important that I will be live at, that the Fremont Podcast is helping to sponsor, is the 10th anniversary of the process of becoming Devout Coffee down in Niles. That event or that festivity is taking place on the 26th of August, so it's a Friday night. You can find out more by going to devoutcoffee.com. You can also find them on their Instagram page, and they can tell you more about how you can be a part of that 10th anniversary. I will be there live to hear stories of people who have visited Devout Coffee over the years, and I will also be interviewing the owners to hear the story of how Devout became a business. If you would like to be a part of that, you'll need to register. There's also an opportunity for you to get a t-shirt as well as take part in the meal that will be served that evening as well. So go find that, devoutcoffee.com. You can go to Devout Coffee on Instagram to learn more about that. And again, I'll be there live hearing your stories. I would love to meet you. If you can come on out, I'd love to say hi to you and hear about your story. And I would enjoy that. This episode that we're going to have today, the conversation that I'm sharing with you today, is a special one. It's about CODA, children of deaf adults, and I think it's a special conversation that all of us in Fremont can benefit from listening to. So here's my conversation with a couple of local Fremont CODA. Well, I am back this week, and I'm really excited about the conversation that we're going to have today. I have two people with me, Ashley and Dane. They both are from Fremont. They've grown up in Fremont. But in their world, at least the world that they're connected with, this podcast, or any podcast for that matter, doesn't exist. It's not possible, because they have grown up in a world of the local deaf community. And so both of them are CODA, which stands for, you guys help me out.
Child of Deaf Adults.
Child of Deaf Adults. You probably have seen the movie, which I will admit that I have not seen the movie that earned 3 Academy Awards. Dane has seen it. Ashley has not seen it. And we may talk about that in just a few minutes. But this is, I wanted to have a conversation with, actually originally started by having an interest in having a conversation with somebody at the California School for the Deaf. But as I got to talk with Ashley, who actually is a friend of mine, and I've known her for several years. She was in a local theater production of Little Mermaid, and my son was also in it, and we got to know her. And then we've just kind of stayed connected over the years. And then she started talking to me about her experience as a child of a deaf adult, and started talking to me about a friend of hers, Dane, who is also with me today, who grew up in Fremont. And we started talking about what it's like to have that kind of a life, to grow up in that kind of community. So that's where this episode came about. So it's kind of amazing that the people that the community that we're actually talking about and that we're going to be considering in this episode are not even able to engage in this media, because it's not available to them because of how they are, the situation that they have, not being able to hear and listen to things the way that we do. So Ashley and Dane, I'm so excited to have you on the podcast. Thank you for joining me. This is really cool.
Thank you.
Yeah. So let's start real quick. I want to talk about kind of the origin of your stories. How you guys are both from Fremont, right? Ashley, your parents are your mom parents are deaf. Tell me a little bit about that.
So my mom's deaf. My dad is actually hard of hearing. Okay. So hard of hearing basically means he has lost a lot of his hearing. He still can hear a bit. So my mom got spinal meningitis at 5 months old. And that basically eats your spinal cord. So she had a really high fever, was in the hospital for a long time, and lost her hearing. And my dad, he's actually from El Salvador, and he actually got chicken pox, and it was really, really bad, super high fever. His hearing just started to go, So my parents were both born hearing, but they're now deaf and hard of hearing.
Yeah, and you were born here in Fremont because this is where they were living at the time.
I was born in Hayward, but
but close by.
Close enough.
Yeah, that's great. And Dane, you were born here in Fremont, is that correct? Or you're from this area?
Correct. I am local. Been here all my life. Both my parents were born completely deaf. My dad was born here in Berkeley. My mom is from Florida, from the East Coast, but I don't hold that against her.
We'll cut her a break.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. That's cool. So I was talking to you about this just before we started recording, but tell me about why you are here in Fremont. Like what brought you here? You said your dad, you were born in Berkeley, or your dad was from Berkeley, and then you guys moved to Fremont. So tell me how that happened. Why that's the case?
Right. So my dad graduated from CSD in 1974 when it was actually located.
Which
in
is,
Berkeley.
Make sure we get the acronym right.
CSD,
which
California
is?
School for the Deaf.
Okay, great.
Yes, it's one of 2 schools of such in the state of California. Okay. The other one located in Riverside in Southern California.
So there's only 2 schools of the deaf in California, and one of them is right here in Fremont. But it used to be in Berkeley. That's where your father graduated.
Well, actually,
from.
the story of that is it originally was in San Francisco, then it moved to Berkeley, and in the early 80s, it moved to Fremont.
Okay. Yeah. So your dad graduated in what year?
74.
And from the School of the Deaf in Berkeley. And keep going on. I interrupted you.
So he started working there. Well, he went to college first of all, then he came back after he married my mom in I forget when. So he started working there, and it moved to Fremont, and he was a football coach and also a cottage counselor. It's a residential school, so he kind of took care of all the students when they were on campus during the week.
Okay. And how many students approximately were there then, or are there now? Do you know?
Currently, it's a preschool through 12th grade institution, and because it's so small and so specialized, there's only, I think, maybe 300 or 400 students.
Okay.
for the entire enrollment.
Wow. Okay.
Really?
And
Yeah.
that's currently.
Wow.
That's currently.
Has it been larger than that in the past?
There have been some like ebbs and flows in the total student population, but normally it's been not even maybe 500. I mean,
Wow.
if that.
Wow. So, and
didn't
you
know
said your
that.
dad was, so your dad was a football coach?
He was,
Okay.
yes.
Is he still working there now? or-
Sadly, he passed away in
Okay,
2005.
okay. Oh,
But
sorry
I mean,
about that. Yeah.
Thank you. Yeah,
Yeah.
but I mean, he was very involved in the daily life. I mean, he worked as a football coach. He was a basketball coach. He helped out wherever he could. He was also a cottage counselor, and he also worked in the technical area as well. He was very much a computer guy himself.
Okay. Ashley, have you had much experience with the School of the Deaf then as well?
Yeah, so my mom actually went to the School of the Deaf.
When she
yeah.
was a child?
Yeah,
Okay.
I think she started probably, I don't know exactly when she started.
Okay.
But she went there and actually lived on campus.
Okay.
My grandparents had 5 kids, so, my mom was better off living at the deaf school. But yeah, once my mom got spinal meningitis, my Nana, she was 19 at the time, and she was really involved in like 4-H and stuff like that. So she picked up, at the time, it was C-sign, which is signing exact English. So she did pick up the signs.
So these are. This is going to be like a little webinar for everyone listening who has no idea what was being done. So say that again. What exactly?
It's called C-sign.
C-sign.
SEE.
Okay.
And it basically stands for signing exact English.
Okay.
So if you're saying like I'm going to the store, you would like sign out like I'm going to the store.
Okay.
Instead of an ASL, it's way more condensed and way more gesture based, like as
Yeah,
Dane
it's
said
like
earlier.
be store go.
Yeah, it's just
okay.
super to the point.
Wow. So it's
Yeah.
it's almost like a difference between like texting lingo and like actual like writing out
Yeah.
a paper.
Yeah,
kind of
like-
like
call it.
Yeah.
LOL, kind of like
Yeah.
that sort
Yeah.
of thing. But it's like like you said, more gesture based. The other one more exact.
Yeah. So
okay.
my Nana actually, so bless her heart, because I took a deaf culture class recently, and I didn't know that a lot of the time when either children are born deaf or they become deaf, a lot of the parents around them don't learn any signed language. So my family is super, super lucky that my Nana learned sign, my grandmother learned sign,
Wow.
all the kids learned sign too, which was really, really awesome.
That's incredible. That's great.
So I'm pretty much the only fluent one in my family, because everybody else does do C sign, which is signing exact English, or rely on like finger spelling, which is like the alphabet, which can get kind of tedious for a deaf person to constantly be like, what are you saying?
Yeah,
You know?
exactly. Yeah.
So I forgot what your question was.
Yeah, so no, that's good. What was that? So what was that like? And maybe both of you can answer this at some point. What was that like? Like, was there a point? Like, was that part of your natural progression as a child growing up, or was it something that like you got frustrated as a child because it was hard to interact with your mom, and then you decided to start learning it? Or what does that feel like, or what does that look like?
Yeah, really, it's pretty much the same for any other child who
Language.
grows up in a
Okay.
multilingual household. I mean, it's like you want to communicate with your parent in an acquired language, which you may have picked up, but they only know their home language, which for some cases it could be Spanish, it could be French, it could be any other language you might think was. But for ASL, I mean, it's all the same thing. It's like you want to talk to someone, but they can't talk back to you. They can only use their hands in such a way. So it can get frustrating at times. It did. I mean, it did when I was younger.
Do you guys? Okay, I was going to ask you. Do you guys remember a time when you didn't know sign language, and then there was a time that you did know it? Because it sounds to me like you said it was a little frustrating. Was there a time when you didn't know sign language?
Well, I mean, my brain kind of malfunctions all the time. So
Yeah.
there's plenty of times where
I think it's more about, because obviously our parents being deaf, I would say baby sign is a really big thing. A lot of hearing people want to teach their children because it gives the child ability to communicate. In our case, the sign just kept going. So I always say sign is my first, or ASL, or sign language was my first language, because I really was able to communicate with people through that, and just my family just knew what I was saying, And I've signed for as long as I've before I could speak, really.
Right.
Yeah.
Even if it wasn't full sentences, I could get milk more, like something you would teach a baby normally.
Yeah.
And that's a thing where I would say hearing people, they always want to teach baby sign, but then they don't really kind of explore into what signed language is and what that community kind of comes from,
Wow.
So there has been times where it's not like frustration of like I didn't know. It was just more of like, how can I communicate this in a way that's going to make sense to my mom,
Wow. Yeah.
Exactly. Yeah.
Wow. So let's talk about CODA just for a minute. The movie. I'm gonna spark a conversation here that I hope is profitable for the podcast. But so Dane has seen the movie, and one of the questions that he asked me when we before we started recording was, "Have you seen it?" And I said no. And I had it in my mind to see it. And actually, I knew this interview was coming, and I thought I should probably watch it before, but I did not. So I failed in my preparation
homework.
for this.
It's okay.
Yeah, exactly.
It's okay. We'll let it slide this time.
Thank you. But it made me feel better because Ashley also has not seen CODA as well. But it came up in our conversation. It came up that Ashley actually has an opinion why she has not seen it, and at this point does not want to see it. So I'm kind of curious, Dane, you have seen it. What do you feel the movie represented or maybe communicates to the broader world that was very helpful for people to be able to see in this Academy Award-winning movie?
Really, my opinion, and just my honest opinion, it basically offers a glimpse into the life of what it's like to live with deaf parents or deaf family in this case. It centers around the main character, the CODA, and her deaf family, her 2 deaf parents and her brother, who is also deaf, and how they're living in this huge community in Boston, which is very heavy on the fishing industry. Of course, not every CODA grows up in the fishing industry in Boston. I mean, I grew up in a school industry in the Bay Area.
Right.
But it really just kind of offers that small perspective, a little sliver of a perspective of what it's like to live with deaf parents.
Wow. Okay. And did you feel like you resonated well with the movie for the most part?
Personally, I did.
Yeah. Okay.
Because it shows the whole journey of how this person grew up and also what they want to do separate from, but then also showing the guilt of the obligation that they have to their parents, but also really wanting them to live their own life and not really realizing it until everything just sort of clicks together.
I see. Okay. So Ashley, now you have an opinion based on just your perception of maybe the trailers or things you've heard or whatever.
Yeah.
And so let me hear a little bit of your opinion. Why is it that you are kind of resistant to watching the movie, and what is it that maybe what is it that is keeping you from that?
So when I first heard of the CODA movie, my cousin sent it to me.
Okay.
And of course my mom is his aunt. He sends it to me and he's like, "You should watch this movie. It's about a girl who wants to sing and she has deaf parents." And I'm like, cool, awesome.
Because you like to sing.
Because I'm a singer.
You are a theater person.
Yeah, I'm a singer.
And you have a beauutive voice, by the way.
Oh, thank you so much. We have to plug Joseph in a little bit.
Okay.
But, basically, I've sang since I auditioned for the talent show in kindergarten. My family just said I came home and I was like, I'm in the talent show.
So you can plug it in now.
Yeah.
So what, are you in a show right now?
Yes, we're in a show called Joseph and the Amazing Technicolor Dreamcoat.
And it's done by what?
Stage One.
Okay.
Is a Fremont
Stage One
based
theater,
production company.
Yeah.
Yep. So you're in that. And what are the dates for the show? We might as well get that.
That's right. The preview is tonight,
Oh,
August 12th.
okay.
We open officially tomorrow, August 13th, and we run through August 28th.
Okay, so I'm gonna have to get this out probably next week so that we
Yeah.
are able to make sure we get it live
Definitely.
for people. So okay, so we
Yeah.
got the plug
So,
in.
yeah.
So you're in Joseph. Yeah,
So
yeah.
basically, because I have sang since I could remember, and knowing that it's something I will never be able to share with my mom, and like growing up, it would make me like sob because like I love it so much.
And she just would not. She would not understand.
Well, she
like,
can't hear
she
me,
can't
you
hear
know, and like I don't want to cry right
Wow.
now, but like
Yeah.
just if I think about it too much, it
Yeah.
gets me really emotional. So I was like, cool, there's a movie that's awesome. And I just didn't watch it, just totally forgot, slipped my brain. And then when I found out that the main actress who is the CODA, like in the movie, wasn't like a CODA herself or really had any tie to the deaf community, that really irked me. I totally agree with Dane. I think it's an amazing, I'm really, really happy that there's representation of what a glimpse into our lives or lives of deaf people is like. And also the cast is so kick-ass.
Yeah.
All the parents.
Marley Matlin and Troy Kotzer both are just immense. in their
So
own right.
amazing, you know,
Yeah.
such great representations and people that whenever they're in a movie, I'm like, Mom, let's watch this, you know, like she was like Marley, she was at Switched at Birth, and that was like one of the first real TV shows that showed ASL, and so me and my mom watched that all the time together. So
Wow.
So did I.
Wow.
yeah, it was such a good show.
What show again? Was it?
Switched at Birth.
Switched at Birth. Okay.
It was on
yeah.
what's now known as Freeform. Before it was known as ABC Family.
Okay. Yeah.
Still
yeah.
ABC Family in my heart.
Yeah, there you go.
But basically, what really bothers me is the fact that the main character, she's not a CODA herself. And maybe I'm being pretentious and I'm just nitpicking. But personally, like, because I love to sing, I have deaf parents that will never be able to hear me. And especially my mom. Like, my dad's hard of hearing, so he can hear a little bit. But I really just, that was the one final key where I was like, oh, that it's no longer about me. It felt more of like, not like a stunt almost, but I was like, there's so many CODAs out there, me and Dane included. We're in theater, we sing. There are so many people out there, especially in the big industry that is Hollywood, that they do love to sing and they have deaf parents. There's us out there. So for me, I was like, oh, so close, like close to the point, because I think that it's a really sad thing being a CODA that your parents will never be able to hear you. So I really agree that I'm happy they chose to tell that story of like having like we said, this podcast of a vocally based thing that your parents will never be able to like hear you with. But I really was just like, damn, I love singing. And I personally was just like, I feel represented in a sense, and I'm really happy that it won so many awards and people felt really touched by it. And like, I'm not upset at that at all. I'm just really upset at the fact that, as a CODA who likes to sing and keep saying it, but I just was like,
a little bit more authentic, I guess.
Yeah, it would have been way more authentic, and I'm happy that there's an actor now that has ability to connect to the deaf community. But
you know, it's interesting when it comes to stuff like that, and I've never made a movie, and I've never really been in a movie. I like to imagine that I was accidentally in a movie one time, because there was a film company doing something, and I walked in the background, and maybe I was in a movie sometime.
Oh my gosh, yes.
But it wasn't on purpose. Anyway, so you know, but it is interesting, and I don't want to push back on that, because I'm not a CODA, and I don't want to like act like I have an opinion that's strong about it. But I think it is interesting, like when you, it's like this. When I moved to California, I started doing a lot of research on what was available to me in Fremont. I started trying to figure out what was available to me around the area. And I moved here, and I would say to somebody who has lived in Fremont their whole life, hey, have you ever been here before? What is that? I don't even know what you're talking about. And they're like, well, you know, there's this and this and this, and I didn't even know that existed. Well, you've lived in Fremont your whole life. How come you don't know anything about that? And I had done all my research. I had imagined what it would be like to go to this place or to experience what they had to experience. And partly being an outsider gave me a lot more work to do to figure out what it would be like to be able to actually, now being a resident of Fremont, and be able to enjoy that particular thing. It does not put me in the shoes of someone who's lived in Fremont their entire life, but it does make me say I have a lot more work to do to try to understand how to be able to become a resident of Fremont as though this is my home. So I'm saying that to say this, like, I'm never going to know what it's like to be a CODA. I'm never going to know. You can tell me all these things. We can listen to this podcast. We could podcast for 3 hours, and you could tell me story after story after story, but I'm never really going to know what it's like going to be a CODA. But I can understand the emotions and the feelings and the experience. I can connect with that in a way that is something that I am aware of and that I'm familiar with. So all I'm saying is that for an actress or an actor to come in from the outside of that world and to be able to like really do their homework to try to understand what it's like, sometimes it's better. It's not something that someone who is a CODA can connect with as closely as someone who's not, if that makes sense.
Right.
Yeah.
In other words, I'm somebody who's in my world has done their research and their homework, and they've given me the ability to peek into a different world, whereas you guys have experienced it your entire life, and it's the lens that you see the rest of the world through. So anyway, that would be I'm listening to you, and I'm like, I totally feel you on that, and I completely understand that. But I'm also looking at it saying, I'm glad someone was able to do their homework and be able to say, I'm going to go into this, and I don't want to let somebody like you down.
Oh yeah,
you know,
I totally. That's what I'm saying. Maybe I think I'm just being a little.
No, absolutely.
I think you're leaning into your identity. I think you're leaning into who you are.
Well, my biggest thing is because I want to do this professionally. I want to act and sing.
What do you want to do professionally? Tell me.
I want to be a film actor. I want to be on Broadway. I want to be absolutely everything performing.
With sign language or CODA.
So that's what I wanted to bring in. That's my biggest thing is especially doing Joseph and my experience doing this. My biggest thing has been the fact that I love something that I can't necessarily share with my parents. So I want to make sure that if I have a tour, I want to have interpreters. If I have a platform, I want people to know that there's a community out there that has not as much representation because people just want to turn a blind eye to them, you know?
Exactly.
And I think because we live in it and we have so much empathy for these people, I think that I personally was just like, okay, I know I'll watch it one day,
Right.
but just right now it still irks me a little bit because I'm really grateful that actress took her time and really wanted to dig into that. But to me, I'm just like, that's who I am. That's my identity of what you just did and the fact that
I had the exact same gripe. It's like the movie itself is brilliant.
Right.
I mean, the cinematic quality is just gorgeous. The only just thing that really irks me the most is that there's no CODA in it.
Yeah, and I think that being the only representation I've seen of myself in Hollywood ever, at such a vulnerable place, because I don't wear being a CODA on my sleeve, right? I have a tattoo. Dane has a tattoo. I think everybody has something of that, because that's such a big part of them. But it's such a part of myself where I'm like, only the people that will get close will know this about me, you know?
Wow.
I'm like, oh yeah, my parents are deaf signed. They're like, oh, awesome, and then we just get over it, you know? But to see see me and see us being represented like that, I was just like, oh,
could have done a little bit better.
Just really, you know.
Yeah. So let me ask you, just as somebody who, and Dane, we'll get to your kind of your experience and the stuff that you're gonna that CODA, being a CODA, has taken you into in just a moment. But before we do that, I want to ask, what are some of the things that the general public might not be aware of when it comes to the deaf community, when it comes to the people that live? Because it seems that because the California School for the Deaf is here in Fremont, we have a significant population of people, more than most cities, more than most places. We have a significant deaf community, right? So, what are some of the things that that the general population of Fremont is ignorant of when it comes to the deaf community, that you guys have as kind of like in-betweens? You're in-betweens. You're not deaf, but that's your world. That is the world that you live in, and that's the world that you've always known. What is it that we could do better, know more of? What are some of the things that are really, really important for our community to be aware of? Yeah,
there is it's such a large group of untapped talent, just in whatever industry you can think of, whether it's machining, whether it's engineering, whether it's acting, whether it's this, whether it's that. There's so many folks out there, but the one thing that the general population can't get over is the language barrier. This person can't hear me. How am I going to be able to communicate? So just ask those questions. It's really just the biggest thing is know that there are people out there who are willing to do the work,
that are talented enough and hardworking and even more dedicated, because they know there is a language barrier and they know that, but they're willing to put that aside and communicate with you. But the hearing population, especially hearing people, are so afraid and they want to just feel like they don't exist.
Oh yeah, right there.
It's kind of like what is that scene in what's the movie? It's Hitch with Will Smith and I can't remember who the other
Kevin James, was it?
Kevin James, yeah. So he's teaching him how to kiss, right? And he's like, you got to come 60%, 80%, 90%, and I come 10% or whatever, right? It's like the deaf community is already coming 80%, 90%, and we're and so many people in the hearing community are not willing to do that 10%.
Exactly, because of that little 10% that you're talking about. Mostly for us, it's a language barrier.
And the biggest thing I was going to say is it's just have empathy and just be nice.
Have an open mind.
Well, the biggest thing is when you see a deaf person struggling in a grocery store, right? Just be nice to them. Don't try to turn a blind eye. Deaf people are aware that you don't know how to talk to them. They know that, you know? And I think the biggest struggle, at least for me as a CODA, and I feel like a lot of CODAs out there, we translate a lot of the time, you know? So when I see a deaf person in public, I'm like, yes, let me go over there and talk to them to make them feel included, because the world, just have empathy and be nice and be willing, because deaf people will... The biggest thing is they're happy you even tried. They're happy you even went out there and said, hey, typed on your phone, hey, how are you? they're going to be so stunned the fact that you acknowledge their presence, because so much of the community, not only in Fremont, which blows my mind, because we do have such a big, like, Fremont's known across the whole, like, not world,
across the state, across
basically.
Right. Yeah,
yeah,
right.
because of, especially being in the Bay Area, Silicon Valley,
Right.
San Francisco, like, all this amazing stuff is here. So I would just say, like, just have compassion, be nice, and just when you see someone and they're deaf, just acknowledge them as a normal person, because that language barrier, like I said, the deaf person knows you can't speak to them,
Right.
but that
Right.
effort is
Yeah.
going to mean so much to
Yeah.
them, because they're fighting through
Yeah,
life.
so I think that's really good, because I do think that one of the things that we forget is that they're human, and
They are.
and we are human, and so the reality is that human love goes a long way, and
really
so
does.
love is one of those things that transcends language barriers.
Yeah.
And so it's easy for us to just be kind and to be open and loving, and not be afraid because not have fear because of the fact that we feel like we don't know or we can't.
Yeah, and
we
also,
can't.
like, have patience, you
Yes.
know?
Patience,
Just,
yeah.
The biggest
it's
thing. Just knowing that, if you're able to show that love, they might not show the same love the same way that you showed them. They might show it in a different way, but just know that it's being reciprocated.
Wow, that's great. I'm sure you can see how important this conversation is to the Fremont community. I loved having this talk with Ashley and Dane, and there's more to come. But before we hear the rest of the conversation, I want to tell you a little bit about Dale Hardware. Dale Hardware has been helping people make Fremont their home for over 65 years, and they're still doing that today. Dale Hardware is doing a lot of things to help build our community. They provide products and services. Their assistance in the store is fantastic for anything that you are working on in your home or even in your business. You can go in there and talk to any of their employees about a project that you're working on, and they have the materials that you need, as well as can offer you advice for the work that you have to get done. But in other ways, they are also helping the community by providing special events. Recently, they launched their Dale Kids Club, and their Dale Kids Club will have monthly activities for kids and families to come out and partake in. They're going to have Fremont Fire come out and do a talk about fire safety. They'll bring a fire truck out and let the kids take a look at that. They're going to have a beekeeper come out and talk about the importance of bees and honey. They're going to have a cookie decorating workshop for kids closer to Halloween. But the big event that they have coming out most recently or soon is on August 27th from 11 to 2. Dale is sponsoring a kickoff to the Labor Day festivities by offering a big barbecue party at Dale Hardware on Thornton Avenue. This is not the weekend of Labor Day. This is the weekend before Labor Day, but this is to get you headed in the right direction. So when Labor Day weekend does arrive, you are already in high gear. So on August 27th from 11 to 2, Dale is doing a cookout, and you're welcome to come out and take advantage of that. The food is free, and they would love to help take care of you and get to know you there. Now here's the rest of our conversation with Ashley and Dane. So, Dane, I want to talk a little bit about, so this has been your life.
Yeah.
Right. So this is, you've grown up in a household with deaf parents, and your dad specifically was involved in the local school as a coach, and we kind of already laid that down. But this has now gone from being your life, just kind of like your normal thing, to now being like it's your vocation. Right. It's become a vocation for you. So tell me a little bit about that. Like how has this transitioned from being what just the way that you kind of knew as a normal part of your life to being a job? And then what kind of jobs are you actually doing? Like, what does that look like?
So I kind of, like you said, I've been signing my entire life.
Can I add one thing?
Yeah.
Please.
It's so... Every deaf person, like especially like hearing people are like, "Oh, you should be an interpreter. You should be an interpreter." So Dane is like the prized child. like actually became an interpreter. And is like an amazing interpreter, may I add.
Yeah.
My cheeks are so red right now. It's like, crazy.
I just need to add that. Please go on.
So I don't think you should be embarrassed at all, because after what I heard, the things that you've actually done, it's impressive. Like, it's pretty awesome. So talk to me about like what is it like going from being just it being a part of your life to being now a vocation for you.
Right. So I kind of fell backwards into it because a friend of mine needed help with this meeting that he was working with for the city of Fremont. And this was maybe like 20 years ago. So I just started by picking up odd jobs through the city and also through some other nonprofits who needed some help.
As a translator?
As an interpreter,
okay,
yes.
As an interpreter, okay.
Yeah. So it just kind of picked up from there. I started doing a little bit more for a little bit, then I steered away from it because I didn't know if that's what I wanted to do. But then it became my full-time gig. I think it was maybe around 12 years ago. I started falling into it 40 hours a week full-time for one agency, mostly also doing video relay, which is basically an adaptive technology for making phone calls for deaf folks.
Exactly. So what did that first 40 hours, like when you started realize I'm full time doing this? What kind of gigs were you doing? What kind of jobs?
I was working with one company full on 40 hours a week. It was basically me sitting in an office interpreting phone calls. It's just adaptive technology. We call it video relay.
Okay.
But then a couple years ago. What was it really? No, it was about a year and a half ago. I had a career shift and now I'm doing freelance work full time.
So so you throw the freelance work off, career shift. What freelance jobs have you done?
Break it down. We need to know what you do, Dave.
Oh, you want to know what I do? Okay, well, other than interpreting for clients in various settings, whether they be medical, educational, all that fun stuff, I also get to work on some special projects as well, like being invited to San Francisco to interpret for various Broadway national tours.
Wow.
One of the most recent one being Harry Potter and the Cursed Child.
Wow.
Which was incredible.
Okay, so being in theater and
Yes.
and then being able to be able to interpret at that level is pretty awesome.
It's such a thrill.
May I add, he's interpreted for Hamilton.
I have.
Wow.
Yeah.
That show.
Wow, that's
is so-
amazing.
That show is a beast.
Yeah.
Yes,
Yeah.
but luckily the
So
team
we're
that I
talking
had
to a
was
pro
incredible.
here.
Yeah, that's incredible.
Yeah.
Well, okay, and this kind of goes back to what we've already talked about, and I don't want to derail this, but it's interesting to me that even in the deaf community, though, there's people that actually would go out and see a show like that, even though they can't hear the music and they can't experience it in its full capacity, but you are helping make that kind of like bridging that gap in some ways.
Basically, yeah. I mean, it's just me providing a way for an audience who might not otherwise get the chance to see a show to experience that show, and I'm just lucky to be able to do that.
It's interesting because when I think of a musical, you have both the visual art of the production value, but then you also have the audible or the hearing side of a show. But when it comes to sign language, it seems like you have two visual things, and so. Is that challenging? Like someone watching you interpret at the same time watching the show, or how does that work?
It can be, because the visuals on stage can only take you so far. I mean, they only tell so much of the story, but a big part of this is the dialogue, like what's going on, like what's being sung, what's being spoken. And it's just, this is just me being able to like say, hey, here's another layer of the story that you might not be getting through this part of your body.
Yeah. So that's cool. Okay, so what other things have you done? Gigs that you've done? You've done Cursed Child. You've done Hamilton. What else?
Rent. I've also got to interpret for Beyonce.
Wow.
Twice.
I didn't know that. Oh my
Twice.
God.
Yes, her Formation World Tour when they came through
that's
Santa
cool.
Clara. Yeah.
That's cool.
Also Coldplay as well.
Oh,
Coldplay.
no way. That's awesome.
I know, right? You're not the first person to say that. I'll tell you that.
That's cool.
Let's see what else.
Freaking out.
I'm just excited because I am a football fan. So
me too.
What football games have you
Let's
interpreted
see.
for?
The College Football Playoff National Championship.
Wow.
This was in 2019. It was
Okay.
Clemson and Alabama.
Wow.
Which Clemson just steamrolled.
Oh,
Alabama,
totally.
so you know that one.
Yeah, that was incredible.
Also, the NFL Pro Bowl.
Wow.
In 2016.
2016?
Yeah.
Oh, man. That's incredible. That
It
is
was-
so awesome.
I mean, both those things are such a trip
And
because you're
also-
treated like VIPs the whole
yeah,
way through.
yeah.
The San Jose Sharks.
Oh yes, the Sharks as well. They had
Okay.
this. They had their annual Hockey is for Everyone night, mostly focused around LGBTQ inclusion.
yeah.
And during the pandemic, this was 2021. This is when they wanted to start including the deaf community. So they invited me to come interpret the national anthem, sing with Melissa Gialdini, who is their anthem singer, one of their anthem singers.
Yeah, that's awesome. That's incredible. So this is a full-time gig for you now.
Yes.
Like this is your job.
Yes.
That's incredible. That's incredible. Well, I think it's just really, really cool for Fremont to be able to be more aware of this community that is living among us. I think it's really, really important. That's one of the things that I wanted to do in starting this podcast originally, is that we are such a diverse community, and we have so many different people from different parts of the world. But and when we think of diversity, so many times we, at least for Fremont, we think of people from ethnicities or people groups. I don't think that we do think about the deaf community and how significant it is here in Fremont. So I think it's really important for us to be able to have this conversation and be able to carry this on. And I love the fact too that and correct me if I'm wrong, because I don't know, but sometimes when you grow up in a situation like this where the scenario is expressed as a handicapped, I think it can cause people in your situation to kind of be bitter or frustrated or angry about the fact that you haven't been able to experience the world in the same way that most of the people in the world. But to hear, I think it seems to me like you've really embraced it, and it's become a significant, beautiful part of your identity. Is that right?
Yes.
It's such a beautiful part, and I'm going to plug in Joseph here once again, because you just asked a question about visually, how does a deaf person enjoy theater or musical theater specifically, while seeing the visuals, while seeing an interpreter at the same time. The production of Joseph that we're doing with Stage 1 is so amazing, because I'm playing the narrator in Stage 1, and Dane is the voice of Joseph.
Okay.
And our Joseph is actually a deaf person themselves.
Wow.
So I'm playing the narrator, so basically I'm singing and signing the whole show.
Oh my, that's
And
awesome.
she is gangsta. I'll tell you that right now. Absolutely. She's awesome.
I was actually going to ask you, because I think when we first met and you did Little Mermaid, and then later we did Cheaper by the Dozen, which my son was also in. When I started, and we were trying to do a few other shows, but in that I was just thinking, I was like, I wonder how cool it would be to actually have a whole cast full of people that are doing that are able to sign while they're acting. I really think it's cool that you're the narrator and that you can do your whole part and kind of like carry the whole show. Both through your acting, your speech, as well as through signing. That's really, really cool.
Yeah, she's absolutely just killing the role. I tell you, the work she's put into this role is just absolutely immaculate, and I'm so proud of all the work that she's been doing.
Thank you.
Cool.
Yeah, so basically I got the email from our director way before. It was more of like an idea. And Dane and I were in a show previously. We just did West Side Story together in 2021.
Okay.
Yeah, in Sunnyvale. But basically, she emails me and she's like, I want to do this. Like, you're one of the people I thought of. And instantly, I saw Joseph a couple years ago, and I was like, I want to play the narrator. But the narrator's usually casted 30s, 40s, way older. And I just turned 20.
Okay.
So, so for context, I was like, I'll play that someday. And so,
It's like, AJ, nothing but a number. What are you
yeah,
talking
I
about?
know, literally. And so the idea of it being brought up, I was instantly like, yes, I will do anything in this show, just because my mom, like, I'm so lucky to have interpreters like Dane and have just even hearing interpreters, just people in this community that want to interpret for the deaf, because my mom has seen, of course, talent shows, no interpreters, whatever, but all the shows I've been in, I'm always advocating for one interpretive night, because there is a big community out there that want to come see shows.
Right.
So I'm so grateful, and even in my bio, I wrote like how grateful I am for interpreters to be able to relay the message so my mom can come see it. So for me to be one of the main people in the show and to be able to share this story, knowing that my mom and the other deaf people in the community that want to come see it, they can come to any night they want.
Exactly.
They can come to absolutely any night
awesome.
because I'm going to interpret the whole show. And we have 2 deaf people in our show and they're doing amazing as well. And we have people in our cast that have either taken ASL, have learned sign through this show. And they're all so willing to make it accessible to everyone.
That's awesome.
And so for me, this is such a dream role. And for me wanting to actually do this professionally, I feel so lucky to be one, so young, and 2, to be able to really use the left and right side of my brain when I'm performing. Not only am I singing, and the role is taxing vocally itself, but I'm also signing and I'm also acting at the same time. And it's like I feel like I'm doing so much, and it just makes me fall in love with theater so much more. The fact that I'm able, I'm just so excited for my mom to come see it. Like I showed her signing.
Just, you should be proud.
Just piggybacking off that idea, it's just every time I do a show, I always have to bring it up to the producers saying, yes, we need to have at least one ASL interpreter
non-negotiable.
Night. 9 times out of 10, people are willing to. I mean, another thing is finances, but that's a whole other story. That's a whole other bag.
Yeah.
But just knowing that I don't have to work out a day saying, okay, mom, they live in Riverside, by the way. So mom and my stepdad, David, they're like, okay, we need to figure out a time when you can come by. We have to plan this out specifically. It's so it's such a huge relief to know that I'm presenting this amazing story in my first language, in their first language, and saying, hey, pick a night, come and see it.
I know. And that's the biggest thing that what I really love about this show is it's any night, anyone can come. And also like this cast, like they care so much and they want to make things accessible. And it's as a CODA to see actual hearing people wanting to communicate with our deaf
that's great.
castmates, wanting to learn some signs, knowing that they can't communicate and knowing that either Dane, another interpreter named Cosette, and she's hard of hearing, and then we have Hayden, who's a CODA himself,
and Jamari as well.
And knowing that they'll have to use some of us for translation, just knowing that they're still willing to do this, you know. And it's just
this is awesome. Very, very cool. So if you haven't gotten the hint yet,
come see the show.
Come see the show. Yes.
Joseph. As we kind of wrap it up, let me ask you guys: what if someone wanted to make themselves more familiar with how to engage the deaf community, learn sign language, be able to kind of bridge that gap? Like, what are some of the ways that our community can do that? Do you have any ways that people can learn about how to sign or how to know more about this?
First of all, don't go to YouTube. Because 9 times out of 10, YouTube, those videos are put on by folks who don't have ASL as their first language. So that's not exactly the best place to start. Where I would start is local community colleges. I mean, wherever they are in your area, especially Ohlone, they have a
humongous, amazing program.
Amazing.
And anybody can access those classes?
Anyone.
And stuff?
Absolutely.
Okay.
Even if they don't want, they have an interpreting program if you wanted to become an interpreter. But even like just the classes like ASL 1, ASL 2, ASL 3, like they're all so accessible.
That's great. And I did an interview with the president of Ohlone a couple months ago, and so that's on here as well.
Yeah.
And they were talking, when I was talking with him, he was talking about how much they wanted to kind of grow their programs so they'd be able to reach more of the community. So I think that's probably one way that people could take advantage of that.
Another way people can reach out if community colleges aren't readily available, there is an app out there. It's called the ASL app.
Okay.
You can download it. There's a little basic glossary that you can use for free, and I think it's a one-time purchase of like $10.
Okay.
You download their entire database, 1,600 signs, and it's all taught by deaf people.
That's great.
Yeah.
Wow.
So that's a good resource to use. Yeah,
that's really cool. Well, this has been really wonderful and eye-opening for me. Just really appreciate you guys taking the time to have this conversation. I really hope this is an interview that a lot of people listen to, because I think this is a world that I kind of imagined that might exist, but I didn't know how much we'd get into it. But I think actually being able to have the conversation with you guys has really opened it up in a way that I certainly did not expect. So I really appreciate you guys taking the time to have this conversation.
Well, thank you for taking the time to actually sit and talk and willing to just be open and listen. I feel like that's a lot of the issue sometimes is people just don't want to listen. So thank you for letting us have a platform to talk about this.
That's awesome.
Absolutely.
Very
I
cool.
think those questions have been amazing. So
Awesome.
it's really, everybody needs to hear these. Thank you.
Well, go out and watch You Guys and Joseph. Let
That's
it be
right.
something that really inspires people to do more. And again, thank you guys.
That's right. Tickets are available at firehousearts.org.
There you go. You know where to find it.
You've been listening to the Fremont Podcast. Be sure to subscribe wherever it is that you listen so you don't miss an episode. And if you're so inclined, leave a kind review so that others can find the podcast. To stay connected with us, you can find links to our social media and other content at thefremontpodcast.com. This episode was hosted, edited, and produced by Ricky B. Music provided through Soundstripe.com. I'm Gary Williams. Join us next week on the Fremont Podcast.
Muggins Media.